That was weird. I don't remember anything like that happening ever. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you all are having a lovely day. It's been a little while since I've been able to make any kind of content, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit before we get into the actual main video. And I know you guys are probably really itchy to get to the actual content, so if you don't want to listen to me ramble, go ahead and skip to this timestamp right here, which is where the video will actually start. But I'm going to give a little bit of a recap as to where I've been, why I've been a little bit quiet, why I haven't really been doing much over the past week or so. And based on the sound of my voice, you might actually be able to tell exactly what happened. So about a week and a half ago or so, there was this big event that my church was doing that I went to for the weekend, and it was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of good memories from that. But unfortunately, throughout the course of that weekend, I managed to pick up the big C word virus, you know, the one you can't say or else YouTube is gonna flag your video for whatever reason. But I ended up catching the big C word, and it was not a lot of fun. It was really bad for a couple of days. I ended up being quarantined basically in this room for a couple of days, which was not a lot of fun, and it just ruined so many plans I had for that week. I had this whole trip that I was planning on going with some friends of mine, which was going to be just a nice little vacation, just sort of a break from everything, just a bit of a reset. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to that. There were a lot of things that me and my wife wanted to plan on doing, which we couldn't do, which was just not a lot of fun. So long story short, I basically got really sick, and it just completely put my entire life on pause. My voice still sounds a little bit nasally. You could probably tell just because of the amount of sickness and medicine that I've been going through, but I do feel pretty much all the way better. It's just a little bit of congestion I have now. But that has basically just completely floored my ability to work on videos up until the past couple of days. I was really only able to get footage for stuff that I wanted to make over the past few days. I wasn't able to do any sort of recording or editing or anything like that because I was not able to. I was not in the right mindset. I was not in the right level of health. But there have been things I have been wanting to make, especially about Helldivers, which you'll see with this particular video. But I just wanted to let you guys know I did not forget about any of you. I did not just sort of go dark for random reasons. I just was not feeling good. I was sick, and it just really put a pause on my entire life. But I'll be back now, and I'm hopefully going to try to get some more content out there for you guys to enjoy. So thank you guys for your patience. Thank you for understanding. And now on to the Helldivers video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to Helldivers 2, a game that has undergone some pretty big changes since I last talked about it. And I kind of want to give my thoughts on the update to the newest Heart of Democracy update that they have done, the kinds of things that they've added to it, the kind of things that make Helldivers 2 a lot better than it has been, but still some of the things that are keeping Helldivers 2 pushed back, at least in my opinion, compared to what it could potentially be. So without further ado, let's not delay anything and get right into the video and talk about the newest update for Helldivers 2, Heart of Democracy, what it adds, what it changes, and what it can mean for the series going forward. So with the main theme of this update is for Helldivers 2 is that the Illuminate have invaded Super Earth. Yes, you heard that right. Super Earth's borders have been breached, and the Illuminate have been assaulting it vehemently ever since the launch of this update. And that is the main overall premise of this update. We got new Illuminate enemies, new areas that we can fight the Illuminate in, as well as a couple of major changes to things like weapons, as well as some superstore changes, as well as a slew of weapon and equipment buffs and changes, which that's a little bit more on the technical side of things. I kind of just want to go over the main big stuff that comes with this particular update and what it changes. So first and foremost, we are finally fighting on Super Earth, which is something that I know me and a couple of my other friends that I play this with have really been wanting to do for a while. We have wanted to see what Super Earth is like and what it actually means to fight on Super Earth. And now we finally get it. It's basically a big, massive metropolitan area. You're fighting in all the major cities on Super Earth. And it really does change a lot about the actual terrain and topography of what we're used to. We're used to just, you know, regular flatlands, landscapes, outdoorsy areas mixed with maybe a couple of city blocks and whatnot here and there. But now it is a huge, full-blown, full map, fully in a metropolitan city. And it does change a lot about how combat and how navigating the terrain works, because it's a lot more straightforward, more or less, because there's not a whole lot of dividers keeping you from going one place to another. It's kind of just you have to go around the building. It does change up the gameplay of how your stratagems and stuff work, because now you can actually see where your ship is in relation to the map. And if you try to bring in its stratagem and your ship detects that it's not going to be able to hit directly where it is, it's going to hit a building or something, it actually has to reposition and change so that way it can hit an angle where you want to hit it, which is actually really nice, although it does make it so that way sometimes your stratagems might take like 30 seconds to come in when they normally have like a 3-second call in, but it's something that makes it so that way you have to be aware of your terrain and where you are in relation to the city, which does make a lot of sense if you think about where you're fighting. And like I said, the Illuminate have invaded and they have brought new threats for us to fight. There are technically 4 new units, although one of them is kind of situational. We have the Flesh Mob, which is a hulking amalgamation of a bunch of different voteless that are basically merged together into this very, very ugly looking atrocity that essentially runs at you. And this is kind of like the Illuminate version of the Charger in a lot of ways, except for not nearly as heavily armored. They're terrifying, they're horrific, and they can come at you in multiple groups. They are just very intimidating, and they are also a good addition to the Illuminate, in my opinion. They're not super difficult to take down. You just kind of have to unload into them. I believe if you take out the glowing heads that they have, it makes them go down quicker, but overall, they're not too bad. We also have the Crescent Overseers, which is basically just a new version of the Overseer, whereas we have the normal ones with the stabs that come at you and hit you or can shoot you, and then we have the ones that fly up in the air. These ones have these big rocket launcher, plasma launcher things on them. Kind of reminds me of the fuel rod gun from Halo, and they basically have 2 different ways that they could shoot them. They can either fire them normally, like a standard plasma launcher, or if they're far away, they can use them kind of like an artillery mortar and bombard you from a distance, which that can be really, really painful if you have multiple of them trying to hit you. These guys aren't really that much different to take out than the normal Overseers. They have the same type of armor, the same type of weak spots and all that kind of stuff. It's just they kind of have a different weapon, which is fine. I mean, the automatons have like 4 or 5 different enemies that are the same thing, just different weapons, so not really that big of a deal. They are a little bit annoying, but they keep their distance from you, which makes them really easy to take out because they don't run towards you or anything like that, so they're not too bad. The next, I guess, 2 enemies you could say, I mean, one of them is a real enemy, the other one is kind of more of a situational special thing, but we also have the Stingray. The Stingray is kind of a special type of enemy that shows up. What this is it's basically an Illuminate bombing run ship that will fly around the map, and you'll see it sort of cycle and sort of do its sweeps back and forth while it's trying to figure out a good spot where it can hit you with. And when it does decide it has a good angle on you, what it'll do is it'll park and it'll sort of line up its shots, and then it'll do this sort of strafing run where it just sort of bombards an area with blasts, and you can see the highlighted area where it's going to hit. So you actually have a decent amount of time before it hits you so you can get out of the way because it does a lot of damage. And this enemy is actually really tough. Not necessarily in the sense that it's difficult to take out, but in the sense that it always shows up at the most inopportune time when you're already dealing with a major horde, and then all of a sudden you just hear the sound of it start shooting, and then you realize that it's doing a strafing run, and you just have to hope to God that you can get away at time. Granted, it's not the hardest thing in the world to take out. I believe you only need medium armor penetration in order to take this thing out, so it's actually not that bad. It's just, again, the surprising factor of you're not ready for it, you don't want it to show up, and then all of a sudden it does show up. But it's still not the hardest thing in the world to take out, and I believe you really won't get more than 1, maybe 2 of these things at a time. At least in my experience, that's what I've seen. I've never really seen more than 1 of these things at a time, so you don't have to worry about them swarming you. And this is more of a special type of enemy that is just going to complement other swarms of enemies. And then the last, I guess, type of enemy that they're probably going to add in full blown, but right now it's kind of just in a specific set of circumstances, is the Leviathan. The Leviathans are these large, huge sort of mega ships that will fly around the area. They'll break through buildings, and they essentially are just really slow moving, massive mega ships that will bombard you from a distance, and they are very intimidating and also very cool looking, at least in my opinion. These things are kind of like the super heavy threats that the Illuminate have, similar to things like the Factory Walker that the automatons have, or the Bile Titan that the bugs have. These are kind of like their big mega ultra threats, and they take a lot of abuse to take down. You have to take out their wings, you can take out the interior parts of them. They're really big and they're really tough, and they fly. Granted, again, like the Stingray, you won't fight more than 1 or 2 of them at a time, and they really don't get too close to you unless like their pathing brings them to you. And if you have buildings between you and the Leviathan, they're really not going to be able to hit you too much because they're just going to end up hitting the building. That being said, they are really tough, and eventually once they do make it so that way, these are probably going to be just random enemies that you find throughout the course of the mission. that's going to make things a lot more dangerous for you. But overall, I like all of the designs of these new enemies. I think that they fit perfectly well in with it. I would still like to see more because I do still think that there's more enemies in all of the other factions than there are still for the Illuminate, but this is still a step in the right direction and I really like what they're doing with it. Another cool thing that they did with this update, especially this is because we're fighting at Super Earth. I don't know how this is going to work once we're not fighting on Super Earth, but we actually have kind of backup for ourselves. As we're fighting on Super Earth, we have access to SCAF soldiers, which will just randomly be patrolling the area because it is Super Earth, they are defending it, and you can actually get them to fight you. If you do the emote that says, follow me or hold position, or you tag an enemy, they will actually listen to your commands. They will actually shoot at what you're going to be shooting at. They will follow you around. They will hold the position where you say so. So these are kind of like little AI squad mates that you can sort of control. They're not super armed to the teeth. They have like basic default liberators that have no attachments. Some of them have EATs and some of them can throw grenades. And they still follow the same logic of if it can kill the enemy, it can kill you. So you don't want to get in front of them because they're not the smartest people in the world. But it's still nice that we have these little troopers that we can command and can actually have help us if we need it. Also, since we're fighting on Super Earth, there are civilians all over the place. And when I say all over the place, I mean all over the place. And they're running around, they're scared because their city's being attacked. And if you accidentally take them out, you will lose credits because of that, which is not a huge loss, but it is enough to make it so that way you don't really want it to happen. Except for the fact that when it's nighttime, you don't realize that the civilians look really similar to the vote list from a distance, and you might accidentally take a couple of them out. Not saying I've done that, but I'm not saying I haven't done that either. And ultimately, just fighting on Super Earth against the new Illuminate enemies is a lot of fun. It's a nice change of pace from the big open landscapes that we're used to. I'm curious to see how they're going to continue this trend once we get off of Super Earth, because I don't think we're going to be fighting on Super Earth forever. So it's going to be really interesting to see just how they keep this going, or what they keep deciding to add in with the Illuminate, if we're going to be getting new enemy types or if we're going to be getting actual fortresses with them. I don't really know. We're going to have to wait and see. And another huge thing that they added with this update is the ability to customize primary weapons, which is something I have been wanting for a long time. And granted, it's not quite exactly how I thought it was going to be. It is still done in a pretty good way. And it's very straightforward. Basically, you just have the ability to add attachments to your primary weapons. Each primary weapon has their own variation of different types of attachments you can get, but basically you can get any combination of sight, underbarrel attachments, muzzle attachments, and magazine attachments. These can be things like extended magazines, drum magazines, shorter magazines. You can get things like chokes, muzzle flashes, compensators, no suppressors yet, which is very interesting. You can have laser sights, vertical grips, angled grips. You can have all varying degrees of sights, scopes, regular red dots, holographics, and every weapon, every primary weapon at least, has a degree of different customization options that you can give to them, as well as pattern options, so you can actually make the guns look like whatever you want in terms of colors, which is nice because a lot of the weapons, at least in my opinion, were cool, but I didn't like that they had a stylized color to them. But now every weapon has a default Helldiver skin, which just makes it the classic black or black and yellow that the Helldivers had, which is really nice. And you can unlock more as you level up. And basically you level up the weapon just by using it, a la Call of Duty style. As you use the weapon, you get experience for it, and when you hit certain level milestones, you get attachments and you get skins, so it's pretty self-explanatory. And of course, the attachments can change the stats, such as the recoil, the sway, the ergonomics, the ammo capacity, all that type of stuff. So it's actually really nice because it makes it so that way some of the weapons that you might not have otherwise wanted to use actually are useful now, because you can customize them in a way that complements the gun in a good way. Like, for example, in my personal opinion, I've been using the Liberator Carbine a lot more often now, because the big thing that I did not like about the Liberator Carbine was just how much recoil the damn thing has. It kicked so hard, it was ridiculously difficult to control. And as I was using it, once I put the vertical foregrip on, it became significantly easier to control. And now it is probably my go-to weapon for fighting the voteless, because you can just cleave through the enemies very quickly. The lightly armored enemies you can just burn through, and even the bigger threats like the overseers, you can still just unload onto them and take them out relatively quickly. And it's those types of interactions of, oh, this weapon was really nice, but it just kind of had this one thing that I didn't like about it. Now you can kind of adjust to it, except for the tenderizer. They didn't give a magazine attachment to the tenderizer, which I think kind of makes sense, because that would have been the best weapon if they didn't do that. Ultimately, I do think that the customization options for the weapons are really cool. I would like to see it expanded to the secondary weapons a little bit more, so we can maybe get some even deeper build crafting. I would also like to see energy weapons fleshed out a little bit more because there's not a whole lot of options for energy weapons in terms of other types of attachments. And ultimately, this is something that I had been wanting to see added for a long time, and I'm glad that they actually added it. Then the last major thing they changed, aside from like some weapon fixes and weapon buffs and whatnot, is the changes to the Superstore. They did change the Superstore a little bit, not necessarily in a crazy way, so don't get too worked up about it. But basically what they did was they made it so that way all of the Superstore items that were released alongside their respective war bonds are now up at the Superstore at the same time. So it's not rotating anymore. Now you just can see everything that was there and you can purchase whatever you want from the Superstore. With the exception of the stuff that just came out with the most recent war bond, which I'll talk about that in a second, that I believe is still rotating, or it's not up currently, or you have to wait for it. I believe they're still doing it for whatever the most recent war bond is. It comes around at a rotating style, but everything else is just always available, so you can get it whenever you want, which I really like because I really don't think it makes a lot of sense to have it be rotated, especially since the fact that it rotated at such a short time. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then again, we have the most recent war bond that came out, the Masters of Ceremony, which again kind of fits the same trend of war bonds that I have personally been experiencing, which is that it's cool, it's flavorful, it has a lot of flair to it, but it doesn't have nearly as much actual meat on it that I wish we did have. The stratagem, especially behind this one, the one true flag, while it is hilarious, while it is very meme centric, doesn't really do anything. It's kind of just a flag that you can use as a weapon. You can wave it and you can march with it and it's funny, but aside from that, it doesn't really do a whole lot much. The weapons are kind of cool, but again, we only have a couple of them. So while again, for flavor, this war bond is great, in terms of actual content, it's still a little bit lacking, like I have been saying about the past couple of war bonds that we've had. And overall, I think that this update for Helldivers 2 was well received, and I am very happy that it happened. And I think that this is definitely doing a lot more to push Helldivers 2 forward. However, I do still think that there are a couple of things in which Helldivers 2 is falling short on. The main thing is, of course, like I said, the war bonds. I do think that they are still going down in quality, at least in my personal opinion. Yes, the flair and the meme behind some of these war bonds is great, but I do think that content should overtake flair, at least in my personal opinion. You can have both. It is possible to have both. And again, I know I'm beating a dead horse by saying this, and I know it's been a while since anybody's brought this up and people have seemingly forgot about it, but the fact that the game is still not playable to a large portion of the world is still a very big factor, especially with a update like this that is literally talking about people getting together and defending the heart of democracy, everybody coming together. And the Earth can't actually do that because the game is still not available in a large percentage of the world. I know it's easy for me to talk about this since I'm somebody who actually can play the game, but it is seriously an issue, and I do hope Arrowhead or Sony, whoever is actually in charge of that whole situation, can fix it to where everybody can enjoy this game, because it is so much fun. It has been becoming a lot more fun. They are showing true, actual improvements to this game in a lot of different ways, and I want as many people to experience it as humanly possible. And let me know down in the comments how you guys feel about this new Heart of Democracy update for Helldivers 2, or just Helldivers 2 in general. If you want to see more content about that, be sure to check out the channel because I've done plenty of Helldivers 2 videos, and let me know if you want to see any other types of videos. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button so that way you never miss an upload, and consider becoming a member as it helps me out a lot. For Super Earth Helldivers, I will see you in the next video.